Welcome to the Where Do Gays Retire podcast, where we help you in the LGBTQ plus community find a safe and affordable retirement place. Join Mark Goldstein as he interviews others who live in gay-friendly places around the globe. Learn about the climate, cost of living, healthcare, crime and safety, and more. Now, here's your host, Mark Goldstein.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to retire in Lewes, Delaware? We'll find out, so stay to the end of the show. We have our special guest today, Terry Manzberger. Tell you a little bit about Terry. Terry and his partner Charlie retired to Lewes, Delaware from Northern Virginia in 2020 after vacationing in the area each September for over 20 years. Terry spent a 33-year career with AT&T as an associate director and supervisor in the business finance department, and partner Charlie was an HR director in the federal government. When not enjoying the lower, slower Delaware lifestyle, restaurants and beaches with Charlie, Terry volunteers about 25 hours a week with historic Lewes in a colonial period tour guide, museum docent, tavern barkeep, cutter rower, and historic interpretation actor. Usually in full 18th century clothing, he often sews by hand. So I have to, do you have any pictures of those, of that? I'd like to see those. I'd like to see those. We'll put them up on Instagram. Terry and Charlie were attracted to the Lewes Rehoboth Beach area for its easy access to Atlantic beaches, outdoor spaces, LGBTQ welcoming environment, small quaint towns, and the low cost of living. Affordable housing near the beaches, coupled with low taxes and availability of healthcare options, makes it a prime retirement spot, especially for gay retirees. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. I'm really excited and really interested in what Lewes is all about. So, Terry, welcome. And can you describe the climate and geography of Lewes, Delaware? What can retirees expect in terms of weather year-round?
Sure. Just to put it in perspective, Lewes is at the entrance to the Delaware Bay, which is just south of the Delaware River from Philadelphia. We're on the East Coast, very close to a nearby town, Rehoboth Beach, and the other beach towns that run up and down the Delaware coast to Virginia and to New Jersey. We're right across the bay from Cape May, New Jersey, and the Jersey beaches. So we're definitely a beach resort type area here in Delaware. The weather is pretty much mid-Atlantic East Coast weather. We do get the change of seasons here. We get some snow, but because we're close to the ocean, it's generally in rain. We get more rain than snow. We do get a lot of winds from the nor'easter storms that go up the coast. We do have a threat of hurricanes from time to time, but normally they miss this particular. We're kind of tucked into the mid-Atlantic area, so we don't get direct hits usually like they do in Florida. But the weather is actually pretty nice. It doesn't get extremely cold. It doesn't get extremely hot. In the summer, we do get humidity. Right now, this time of year, September, October, and in the late spring are the best times to be here. The weather's pretty perfect, very pleasant, and we have as many tourists in the off season.
So what do you have now, like in the 70s?
Yeah, 70s, maybe up to about 80, a low humidity. The evenings are really cool. Nice. They drop down in the upper 50s. Just really nice outside fall weather.
And we're recording this on September the 29th. So that's pretty cool. It certainly beats Phoenix's 117 degree weather right now. So let's talk a little bit about climate change. How has climate change impacted life in Lewes, particularly with issues like flooding or rising sea levels? Are these concerns for retirees moving into the area?
Well, yes, you got to remember Delaware is fairly flat, and we don't have very many mountainous areas at all. There's a lot of wetlands along the coast. So with the climate change, we are seeing stronger storms that come up the coast. The nor'easter, which is basically a winter hurricane, will get some pretty severe thunderstorms through the summer. There's always a threat of tornado activity. It hasn't been a direct hit in Lewes in many years, but it is something they're seeing more of as the climate change affects the weather. We are seeing flooding too with when you get these heavy storms, and because it actually floods more from the wind pushing from the ocean. It pushes the water, it makes the tides higher. So you may not even get a lot of rain, but you will get an effect from the wind and the tides. So we'll get a lot of coastal tide flooding, they call it here, where it'll come into up the little creeks and it'll flood in the low areas. So obviously people don't build in those areas, or they try not to, but some of the older communities that are too close to that are being more affected. It'll flood some of the highways. We've had there's a major road that connects from Lewes down through Rehoboth all the way to Virginia, and it hugs the ocean of the coast. And we've had areas where the dunes have been broken through by storms, and the road has been flooded. So they're working on trying to fix that. But it's a never-ending battle with the eroding beaches. The storms come and take the beach away, then we pump more sand in, spend a lot of money to dredge, and then the next season we get another storm. So,
yeah, never-ending is right. And how close are you to the beach or to the ocean?
Lewes is right at the mouth of the Delaware Bay and the ocean. It's where the two meet. So the town itself is about a mile, if that, from the actual beaches. Lewes is about 6 miles from Rehoboth Beach, which is directly on the ocean, and that's a much larger beach town type environment over there. But they're kind of a sister city to us, so we share a lot of the same facilities and everything.
Right.
Okay. So that's much closer. But yeah, and the thing is, this part of Delaware, we have the ocean front, ocean beaches. We also have 2 large bays that are right behind the towns. So there's Rehoboth Bay, and then there's a canal that connects them from Lewes to Rehoboth Bay, and from the Delaware Bay to Rehoboth Bay. So there's plenty of waterfront, if you will, areas, properties, and opportunity for boating and kayaking and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Are there any local initiatives or infrastructure projects addressing the effects of climate change in Lewes?
Yeah, the cities and the county governments are aware of it. They've got commissions, so they've got committees working on that, working with the federal government to try to figure a way to lessen the impacts of that. There's initiatives for offshore windmills farms as we try to work on the electrical grid here. The biggest challenge, really kind of linked to climate change as well, is the somewhat overdevelopment of the area that's happening, where they've loosened the rules on development over the years, and so they're moving into wetland areas and taking up a lot of the free space that we need for the rain and the runoffs and so forth. So that's having an impact already. And the tide's turning a bit on that here politically, and it's starting to push back on some of that.
Okay. So the secret is out about Lewes. They heard about Lewes and they're wanting to move there.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the cost of living. What is the cost of living like, and give us an idea about what the median home value for a single family home is. And if you have any rentals, what a typical 1 or 2 bedroom rental might cost.
Right. So the county that Lewes is in is Sussex County. And a large part of the county and the state is still very rural. A lot of farmland, a lot of corn and wheat type places, farms. However, along the coast is where you see most of the housing and the development. And here in Lewes and the areas right around it, you're looking at, for a 3-bedroom single family home, average around $430,000. You can get cheaper than that if you go a little farther away from the coast and more inland. But for our community, that has its own challenges because it is a very rural area. Mm-hmm. And what's happening is the farms are being sold to developers who then will go in and put a couple hundred houses on an old farm. Yep. And they're basically, you can get a new build, you can get a new house here, a 3-bedroom starting in some places in the mid to upper 300s.
Wow.
But you're out, you're several miles from the beach, plus the traffic makes it a little difficult in the summer. But yeah, if you're looking for that kind of a community where you have, large number of homes and a kind of a no trees farmland
Right, like a
thing.
master plan thing.
Yeah. Now, if you want a home that's close to the beach and in the towns of like Lewes, you're looking upwards to $1.5 million to get really close to the ocean. And that's for pretty much, regular size house or even a small cottage in some places, but very high to get those. You can get a condominium, you can rent. You can rent a house here annually for probably maybe 2,500 to 3,000 a month. And you can get a condo, an apartment, about like a 2-bedroom apartment, a condo or something for maybe upwards to $2,000.
So prices have gone up pretty much, yeah, when the secret gets out. So
it was really hot before the interest rates went up. They're starting to now. I expect we'll start to see that to drop and they'll pick up again. I was there for a while, like right after the pandemic. It was difficult to even find a house here because the demand was so high and the volume supply was very low number of houses on the market. That's why and you kind of have to make that decision. Do you want to get an established house, which you can get cheaper than that average rate, I believe,
right?
Or do you want a new build? So a lot of people want a brand new house, and so that's kind of the big choice here. There's plenty of new builds still going in that you could find one pretty easily, probably, but all depends what you're looking for.
Gotcha. Okay. How do everyday expenses like grocery and utilities compare to other areas of Delaware or to the national average?
Well, we're slightly higher, about 2% than some of the other places, or nationally. We're 2% higher than national, and a little bit higher than some of the neighboring states. However, we don't have sales tax here. So that to me, that's a counterweight. So coming from Northern Virginia outside of Washington, D.C., to me, feels like a much cheaper area to live. I find personally the expenses have been a lot less, and there's plenty of. And then we have a lot of outlet stores here because it is a resort area. So you can, for clothing especially, and all of the name brand type things, they have outlet stores here. So you can get a lot of deals on clothing, at least here. Groceries are like everywhere else, they've gone up, but still there's plenty of choices here. Groceries, grocery-wise.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, we have several major of the chains, and
is
so
Costco there?
Competition. Pardon me?
Do you have a Costco?
We don't have a Costco. We have a BJ's nearby. The Costco we do have one upstate near Wilmington, which is about maybe an hour from here, an hour and a half from here, from Lewes. So that's a day trip if you want to go to Costco.
Okay. That's funny. Okay.
There is talk of building one here just outside of Lewes, but that there is an area that's looking to develop for that kind of thing. So we have our fingers crossed. We might get one in a couple of years. But
do you have a Trader Joe's?
No, no Trader Joe's in this area.
Okay. Let's talk about taxes. So taxes are a big concern for retirees. Can you explain? I know Delaware they don't have a state tax, right?
Well, it is one of the pros of coming to Delaware and why we have so many retirees coming. Like I said, we have no sales tax. The property taxes and school taxes are very low. The property tax is at 0.53%.
Wow.
So like a $200,000 home, you're going to pay about $1,600 a year.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, compared to New Jersey or Pennsylvania, that's a big change.
New Jersey is like sky high.
Right. And then on income taxes, the income tax is 2 to 5%. It's graduated, or kind of a sliding scale. So if you're under 60,000, you're going to pay somewhere between 2 and 5%. If you're over $60,000 a year in income, the maximum income tax would be about 6.6%.
Okay.
So it's not too bad. And then they don't tax your Social Security benefits here. And you can exclude $12,500 of your pension or 401k. The first $12,500 is excluded.
That helps.
So then they tax at that other income tax rate after that.
That definitely helps.
And that's for anybody who's 60 and above.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's not even 65.
And then at 65, I believe they drop They don't even pay property tax.
Really?
At 65 over, there's I think an income level, but yeah,
They have
it
like
gets
a
better if you're over
homestead
65.
tax?
Yeah,
I mean, a homestead exemption?
not sure.
Okay. All right. Well, that's pretty good. That's really good. I mean, if over 65 and you're not paying property tax or a low property tax, that's great
Right.
for me. How about
Definitely very
pension?
low. Yeah.
How about pensions? Are they the same as 401ks and
Yeah, that's the 12,500 exemption, and then you get taxed at the whatever your income rate would be,
awesome.
income
Okay.
tax rate.
All right. Now, my favorite is walkability. I don't know if Lewes is, tell me, does Lewes have like a downtown? Is there a place that you could walk to different bars, restaurants, coffee shops, or stores?
Yes, Lewes is a very small town, and it's an old town. It's almost 400 years old, and it's basically pretty much at the same place it's been all that time. It's like I said before, it's close to the water, but the main part of the town where the business district is just a couple blocks long, and it's on primarily 2 or 3 streets. So it's a very concentrated area,
Hmm.
easily walkable. It's one of the beautiful parts about Lewes that everyone likes is it's a very quaint, quiet little town that you can walk. It looks beautiful homes, a mixture of Victorian homes and old historic homes. And you're right on the canal, so we have some boats coming in and out. So it's a very pretty little town to walk in. And we have a number of shops, and restaurants are really good. We're getting more and more upscale restaurants now in Lewes. So you have plenty of that to walk to. Parks. And of course, the historical district that I'm familiar with is right there downtown. And we have a lot of museums and options there.
Cool. Very cool. Now, you need a car, right?
Pretty much if you're going to be going outside of the town. I mean, unless you lived in the town, you would still need to get somewhere to get to the grocery store.
So you need a car to
Yeah.
Okay.
There is bus service, local bus service, and then there's bus service that goes take you up through Delaware up towards Philadelphia. But it's local bus service. It's not if you're coming
Right.
from a city, it's not going to be anywhere on the level that you're used
Right.
to.
You used to. Very nice. A small, charming town. I love it. Okay, so you need a car. How close is the nearest airport? Is that in Wilmington?
Well, they have one, but it's not. If you're looking for an international, like big airport to make if you're going anywhere,
Like
far,
Philly?
Philadelphia would be the closest one. It's about 78 miles, so it's about 2 hour drive from here, from Lewes
Oh,
to Philadelphia. You
okay.
can get taxi or limo service from Lewes up there. You can also get a bus. It'll take you a lot longer on the bus,
Yeah.
like multiple hours to get there. But you're also not that far from BWI, which is in Baltimore, and
Baltimore.
from the Washington airports, Washington, D.C.
Hmm.
So they're a little further, about 2.5 hours away. So it's definitely, you got options there. You can go to Wilmington and take the train, and the train will get you to New York or Philadelphia as well. You can hook up with the train. So I know friends of mine that go to New York City a lot,
Hmm.
they'll drive to Wilmington Park at the train station and hop the
And take
train.
the train. Wilmington doesn't have an airport,
They do, but it's
but
not a
it's a
major,
local. It's a
yeah, not a
local.
major airport. They have service to Florida from there now,
Okay.
places like that.
Okay. All righty. And let's talk about the LGBTQ community. I know that Lewes and Rehoboth are very LGBTQ friendly. I know that I know at least for in Rehoboth, there's a lot of businesses that are LGBTQ friendly. Tell us a little bit about Lewes and how that coincides, or is it as friendly? And do you have like gay restaurants or gay friendly bars?
Well, yeah, there's definitely a difference in vibe between Lewes and Rehoboth. Lewes is much more of a regular small town that has a beach, we like to
Mm,
say, versus a beach town. However, we are seeing more and more LGBTQ moving into the area in and around Lewes. I live in the zip code of Lewes, and my community is about 30% of our folks. It is a popular place for our community to retire. We do have a lot of retirees here, a lot of lesbian couples and male couples. So as a result, we're seeing that spread across the region, really. So Lewes is very welcoming to the community. There aren't that many gay-owned places in Lewes proper, but there are in Rehoboth Beach nearby. But I mean, it's never been an issue here. I mean, it's a very inclusive
Accepting.
community. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know, I guess as Rehoboth also gets so crowded, people don't want to be in the crowds. And then Lewes is really not too far. How far is Lewes from Rehoboth?
6 miles.
Oh, that's nothing.
No.
So,
And if you take a bike, it's even faster. There's a bike that
trail
links the two towns along the ocean.
Nice.
So there's a lot of biking activity here. But yeah, and Rehoboth, and actually, in this part of the county, there's quite a few organizations that have popped up. We have Camp Rehoboth, which is like the gay community center. They have a whole host of programs and groups and different activities for retirees, especially. We have a good library system here that's often used by everyone. We have various groups that have formed up. Like I belong to one that's for men over 55, gay men over 55, and it's called the Coastal Beach Buddies, and we go walk the boardwalk and have brunch.
That's nice.
Things like that. There's a lot of social groups here for our community, and pretty much any different stripe you would want to find, you'll find that. There's plenty to do that way, and there's a big support network for the community. There's an MCC church here in the area in Lewes, for instance. So I think we're pretty well. You won't have a problem finding other folks.
Okay, I was going to say, you don't have, it's pretty easy to meet other LGBTQ people in town.
Yeah, and it's a very friendly environment. And, people, they're retired or they're here in the summer. That number swells as we get visitors coming from Washington and Philadelphia and New York. We get a big influx so there's plenty of gay bars and restaurants and clubs and activities going on in Rehoboth, especially in the summertime. So there's all that.
Does Lewes have a pride, or they share it with like Rehoboth?
They share it with Rehoboth. Pretty much Rehoboth is the lead for all of that sort of thing. And
okay.
Lewes, if you picture too, the Lewes zip code wraps around Rehoboth. So Rehoboth is like hugging the ocean beach. Mm-hmm. But then anything that 2 miles out of the town is going to be considered Lewes. So we're all kind of one. We're really
together,
one family here. Yeah.
Yep. Very cool. Very cool. All right. So there is an LGBTQ community. You can find gay-friendly bars and restaurants between Lewes and Rehoboth, and there's organizations and events in Rehoboth as well for the community. Do they have like a LGBTQ center? Is it in Rehoboth?
Yes, that's Camp Rehoboth.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. Let's talk about arts, culture, and dining. Dining, one of my favorite subjects.
Okay.
Do you have any art scene or arts and culture, theater?
We do have art scene here. Now, again, if you're coming from an urban area or a larger city, it's not going to be obviously on the same level. We do have a very vibrant local theater here called Clear Space, and they're actually looking to expand and build a new facility soon. And they provide theater throughout the year, but especially in the summer, they'll get summer stock actors in from New York, and they'll do several shows in the summertime. And they also, they're an educational theater, so they have classes that people can take. And if you want to get involved that way, or for younger people, like they have a youth program in the theater. So that's kind of exciting. We also have a lot of local artists, and we have our art shows. We have an artist guild in Rehoboth that they have studios and whatnot for the artists. So we do have that. Museums we do have. Again, there's a lot of history here, being Delaware is pretty old, so it's a lot of that. If you're interested in that kind of colonial or early 19th century type history, we have lots of that. A lot of maritime things too. We have maritime museums if you're interested in in that.
Tell us a little bit about your colonial things that you do.
Yes,
History.
well, yeah, Historic Lewes is a society. It's a historical society of Lewes, and we have about 12 buildings that we own and operate, and we have several of them are open as museums. So I took a tour. I took a walking tour a couple of years ago when we moved here full time. I enjoyed the tour, and I thought, well, I always liked history, so that looks like something fun. And you get to wear funny clothes, so who doesn't like to dress up? So
That's right.
so I volunteered. I did some work in their archives. They were really fantastic archives in our history museum, which you could spend days in there just going down rabbit holes. But eventually they got me to put on the clothes and work as a docent. So I'm a tour guide at some of the museums. And then we have an old tavern that we bring to life every weekend. So we actually mix up old colonial drinks and I serve those as a barkeep. And we'll get
That is so cool.
a lot of fun with that. And I do right now, we're in October, heading into October. So we'll be doing extra nighttime walking tours. They're called the Legends Tour. So we give you history and we sprinkle in a little ghost stories and we take you into some of the haunted buildings.
I love that.
So that's a lot of fun. It gives me something to do besides, you can only eat so much shrimp and sit on the beach so long, right?
And it sounds so much fun. It really does.
I get to meet people that way. I do I miss a little bit. I mean, it is a small town environment here.
Mm-hmm.
You're here a couple of years, you'll get to know a lot of people. It's more like what is it, 6 degrees of separation. Here it's more like 2.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be a pro and a con.
That's true. Everybody could get into everybody's business.
Yeah, everybody knows everybody. Or somebody that knows somebody, right? So there's that. But it is nice to meet other people that come in from time to time.
That's so great. I love that. All right. So how about dining options? Talk about restaurants.
Well, this being a vacation destination, we have a lot of good restaurants, and not just your beachy type restaurant. I mean, we have plenty of those if you like crabs and things like that, but we also have high-end restaurants. And given that we have so many people coming from Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia, we do have some pretty upscale restaurants that are very nice, very fine dining. It's great for our community as well. So Lewes has added a few. We have this one called the Harbor Restaurant on the Canal, which is really quite beautiful. It has the best view of the water in town. They're very good. And we have a great Indian restaurant, which is nice to have some diversity in the area. Yeah. So that's a very wonderful restaurant that we go to a lot. We're getting some better Asian style food here now, so that's good. We have a couple good Thai places, things like that.
Awesome.
But it's a wide range, so you can go from anywhere from a good walk-away pizza shop, slice of pizza, up to a 2-hour gourmet dinner. So it covers all the bases, really. For a small town, it's quite impressive.
And that's within the Lewes area, right?
Yes, they're all within that little business district I was mentioning, a couple blocks from each other. So you can.
Do you know approximately how many restaurants do you think you have in Lewes? I know Lewes is a small town.
Oh, at least a dozen, 15.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a nice size. That's sure it is. And then Rehoboth has a ton, I would think.
A lot more, yes.
Yeah. Very nice.
You won't go hungry and you'll have plenty of variety.
Variety.
So you get into your circuit of where you go and you get your favorites, but.
Very good. I'm getting hungry again, as usual. How about healthcare? So healthcare is really important. How far is the nearest hospital? Tell us, or how close is the nearest hospital? And is it accessible to Lewes? Are there long waits for doctors? What is the situation there?
Well, healthcare is actually really improved here in the last several years. With the influx of retirees, they definitely have a demand. So there is a hospital. It's been in Lewes for over 100 years, and it's the largest hospital in the southern Delaware area. It's called BB Hospital, and that's right downtown Lewes. They keep expanding. They've been building like crazy, so they've added several. They've added a new surgical hospital just outside of town, actually just a block or about a half a mile from my house. And they've opened up a lot of other area walk-in centers and places where like you can get your blood work done and you can do smaller procedures. They can do more simple procedures. So it's getting much more accessible than it was maybe 20 years ago. There's actually 3 hospitals now, three medical businesses working in the county, BB being the largest, but there's another one that's moving its way into the area. So it's to meet the demand. I mean, it is a high demand, especially with this, and we're getting more and more specialist care here. So you're pretty much find any specialist you would need. Once you get into one of the systems and get your general practice doctor, then it's much easier to get into all the other places. Like they'll get you referrals everywhere. Recent survey I saw that came out, we were ranked number 2 in the country in hospital quality, number 6 in healthcare quality, and 9th best state for healthcare. And we have we're ranked 10th in the country for access. So things are definitely getting better here. Now, that said, I mean, sometimes to get maybe the doctor you want could be a bit of a challenge, or there have been, depending on what need you have, some of the specialists it is a little long. It is a bit of a wait to get into them, unless obviously if it's a critical situation, you'll get bumped up. But you may wait long, especially for elective type surgeries. You might be on a wait for a little while, but that's getting better and better. They also have, I think, what they call boutique healthcare, where you can pay like an extra annual fee in order to get access to quicker. Yeah, so that's becoming a thing here now too.
Yeah, they call it boutique or concierge.
Exact concierge. That's the word.
Concierge.
Yeah. So there's definitely people in the area that can afford that and choose to go that route. But the average person can get good care here.
It's a fancy way to say, "Oh, pay me $700 and I'll get you in faster."
Yeah. I will say though, another thing medically though, it's not for people, is this is a very heavily dog friendly area. I mean, there's just about everybody has a pet, and so as a result, with more and more people bringing pets, it's actually harder to get into a vet appointment than it is a person.
I believe it.
We also have we don't have good emergency care for pets yet in this area. I think we did, and it just got overwhelmed. And so you do, for the closest emergency hospital really for a pet is in Dover, Delaware, which is about 45 minutes away from Lewes. So you have
a little trek.
There's something to take into account especially if you have elderly pets.
Yeah,
I think that'll get better in time, and people will start to meet. They'll move in and try to meet that demand. But just throw that out there.
That's a little gap out there. But as far as like if you need a cardiologist or a dermatologist, any of those specialties, there's no problem really in getting one and getting an appointment. What do you think? 2 weeks for an appointment, or more or less?
If you're once you're an established patient, you don't have any. It's pretty quick. You can get one in a couple of weeks. Okay. If you're brand new and you get into it, you may be waiting. To start up with a cardiologist, you might have to wait a month or 2.
Yeah. Okay.
And also, I think it depends. If you coming in and you still have private health insurance, you might get a little faster onboarding than if you were
Medicare. Have Medicare.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. So,
but also then remember, you're not far from, if you have a very serious like cancer situation or something, you do have, we're not that far from Philly or Washington or places like that.
Yeah, Philly has great medical. And how far is Philly again?
Yeah.
How far is it? 2 hours?
Yeah, 2 hours.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Crime and safety. I wouldn't think there's a big crime issue in Lewes.
Not in terms of like violent crime. We don't really have that. We have you're going to have your burglaries and a lot of mostly would be car break-ins for people that are not even and they say break-in, but people tend to leave their cars open and then leave them outside, and that's not the best, especially in the summertime season when you got a lot of people coming in from, out of town.
Right.
So it's a big influx of people. So you're going to see an influx in crime of small nature, but there's not the violent, like attacks and shootings and things like that.
Right, like you hear in big cities.
No, there's some drug issues here. Again, when you get the influx of folks
from other places.
yeah, but it's not nothing like you would think about it. Oh, a drug problem there. No, it's not.
Right, or maybe stealing an Amazon package off your porch.
Yeah, right.
Some petty theft, more or less, right?
Yeah, more of that. Mm-hmm. But it's, I feel perfectly safe walking around in Lewes, downtown Lewes at night.
So if you had to walk your dog outside your home at 2 a.m, you wouldn't feel
not a problem.
You wouldn't you'd feel safe. Okay, that's good to know. So there's no real crime concerns that prospective retirees should be aware about. Are there some neighborhoods that are safer than others?
Well, sure. And, especially if you're LGBTQ, you're going to, like anywhere else in the country, you're going to look around, you're going to be aware of this, the surroundings. If you're what I call the bubble, if you stay within the bubble of the resort areas, right here along the coast, you're going to be fine, because in some cases where your community is going to be 30, 40% your people.
LGBT.
Right. So you'll feel perfectly. It's kind of unusual not to see us or not to see gay couples around here.
I like that.
Yeah. You go in a restaurant and maybe 50% of the patrons there are LGBT. And so, that's it. But if you're going out, again, if you're looking, maybe you're trying to get a cheaper home and you're moving to some of these smaller towns.
In the rural.
The towns are changing. We have a place called Milton just up the...
Oh, yeah, I heard of Milton.
Few miles north of Lewes, and another place called Milford, which is just a little bit past that. Milton has a new theater there that's been doing very well and attracting a lot of LGBTQ patrons and also people moving there now. And Milton's under a bit of a housing boom. Wow. So if you like even a smaller town feel than Lewes, and you want that kind of country, small town rural feel, Mayberry, not quite Mayberry, but
it's Mayberry to me.
All right, but some people like the small, that smallness.
Sure,
that's a really nice place to go, and it's up and coming, and there's a lot of exciting plans for that town, and they're getting more and more gay folks up there, around a lot of these towns. So, but there's other areas, like you go down over towards the southwestern part of Delaware, you're getting into like Salisbury. That's not a good example, but some of these little western towns that are still kind of not right there with us. You got to be careful where you end up.
That's pretty much everywhere. You go outside of the town or city, and in the rural areas, and you got to be aware of where you're going.
Right. I mentioned Salisbury there. Salisbury.
Is that Maryland?
Yeah, it's about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
A little over an hour from Lewes down. It's just on the border, just over the border from Delaware because Delaware, Virginia, and Maryland all meet together here in what we call Delmarva, which is the big peninsula that has all three states. But Salisbury has a university there. So that's obviously a university town. So if you're looking for more of that kind of vibe, you want to be closer to like a university environment, you'd want to go maybe down into Salisbury, right over the border, or right across the border into Delaware. It'd be pretty good, and you'll find, I'm sure that they have a lot going on down there as well.
I never heard of Salisbury, Maryland until I met somebody, and we did a podcast, believe it or not, on Salisbury. I was pretty surprised, actually.
It's close to the Maryland beaches, Ocean City, Maryland, which is a very large beach town. So there again, if you like that kind of a beach town experience, you want to, then the further south you go, the more you're going to get that. Here in Lewes and Rehoboth and along the Delaware coast, they're much quieter, smaller towns.
Quaint.
We don't have the big high-rise hotels. They're small. Right. They're like Airbnbs. They're a lot of bed and breakfast places that are really charming. You can rent a little beach cottage in both of the Lewes and Rehoboth. You can rent those for the summer, or for a week. So that's a really nice. Even if you don't move here, that's a wonderful place to visit on vacation.
It's quaint as opposed to that resort type. Correct. Ocean City type place. Yeah, I kind of, even though I'm a city boy, I think I prefer a Lewes Rehoboth type place. It's just quiet and peaceful, and it sounds like a really great place to retire.
We like it.
So, yeah. All right. So, how about your final thoughts? What words of wisdom can you tell our audience if they're considering moving to Lewes?
Well, I think what I was starting to go there was with the small town environment. If you're coming from a more urban area, it is definitely, we call it the lower, slower Delaware is what they call this area. And they mean that
Slow.
things are just on a different level things don't go very fast here. So especially like if you're
How
getting
about in a
contracting
restaurant?
work, huh?
How about
In a restaurant? Oh, nah. Well, depending.
is it
Depends
slow
if
to
the
get your
staff
food?
is working or if they've gone fishing. But no, the good restaurants are just fine. But I'm thinking more in terms of like if you're getting contract work done here,
Oh,
which
okay.
that's getting a little challenging with so many homes here now to make, if you have a skill or if people have those kinds of skills, this is the place to come. But it's just it takes a while to get them, and they take their time sometimes in doing repairs and things like that. Um, but I would say if you a little slower lifestyle, which is still sophisticated enough that we have our theater, we have our good restaurants and all of that. Just bear in mind that if you're moving to an area like this, is a summer vacation destination. So in the summer, it's going to get very busy. We're going to get a huge influx of people. Traffic's going to be very awful for a couple months. You won't be able to get into your favorite restaurants as easily. They start charging for parking downtown Lewes and Rehoboth during the summer months. So you just take that into account, and you kind of work. If you're retired, you can easily work your life around that. The other thing is that I really love about here is that we have so much of outdoor activities that are available. If you like that sort of thing, you like to be able to hike, you like to be able to ride a bike. We have tons of bike trails all around, and it's pretty level. So it's pretty easy, even for retirees. The bike trails are really well maintained, sometimes better than the roads. And Delaware is full of really nice state parks and local parks that are really maintained well and have trails that you can really explore. If you like to be on the water, we have a lot of boat options here. You can take the ferry over to Cape May, New Jersey, which is always a fun trip.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you take your car on the ferry, then you can go on up to Atlantic City or up the coast of Jersey. So it's a quick and fun way to get to New Jersey from here. So lots of things like that. So
What do you think attracts the gay? I'm always fascinated of how the gay community gets attracted to certain places. And Lewes being one, you said, like, you walk into a restaurant and half the people in the restaurant are LGBTQ.
I think it started because this was a beach area, and the beaches here always have been a pretty nice. It used to be a very quiet, sleepy town, Rehoboth, and so the fact that the fact that it's so close to Washington D.C. and Baltimore and Philadelphia, it pulls people from those cities.
Mm-hmm.
People that didn't want to go to the Jersey Shore, maybe didn't feel as comfortable going to some of the places in the Jersey Shore. Here, they just kind of gravitated to the Delaware beaches, and Ocean City, Maryland has always been a popular beach spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I can remember when I was in high school, that's where we went after graduation, went to Ocean City, Maryland. And then these other towns you kind of passed through them to get there. And so I think what happened is just some people started coming to Rehoboth. And they started open businesses. They were received well by the local government. Now, it took a while for some of the locals to embrace that. Mm-hmm. But over time, we just sort of moved in. And that's really what Camp Rehoboth was formed as an organization to work with the town of Rehoboth and Lewes to make this a safe community for everybody and to work. And so there was a real effort on that front. And then as this word spread, and back 20, 30 years ago, you could buy a cheap house in these little towns.
Oh yeah.
And people from the cities came here and bought houses, and then it just sort of became word of mouth, I guess. It's
I was just going to say,
once you get established, it spreads. And I mean, we have whole areas that are now it's getting more and more, everywhere else, you're not seeing the gay bars as much anymore. So we're kind of in all of the places now too. So it's the same here. It used to be you kind of when you came to these places, you would go to the gay restaurant or you go to the gay bar. Well, now everybody goes everywhere. And so
Right.
we got straight
all over
people
the
coming
place.
to all of the gay places. They come to and there's a lot of drag shows here. So, and that kind of entertainment. Then you see a lot of straight couples coming to that. So it's always felt like where everybody kind of live and let live kind of feel.
I love
At
that.
least that's how I feel about it in both Lewes and the surrounding area here. So I think that's attractive to retirees, especially because it felt that's when my partner and I were looking for a place. It was like a no brainer because we always felt safe here and welcome, and you didn't feel like you had to hide yourself. So
That's great. Spread the gay.
yeah,
That's wonderful. I think Lewes and Delaware itself is very attractive to people because of the tax situation, no tax. Would you agree with that?
yes,
Okay.
that's the number one thing you will hear from people that retire here. It's because of the low taxes, especially the property tax. We hear nightmares of people coming here from New Jersey and Pennsylvania and other higher tax places.
I've been looking all over the country, and then I get cost of living, and everything looks good, maybe with cost of living a little bit higher, and then I look at the property tax and I'm like blown out of the water. I'm like, holy moly, this is crazy. So yeah, taxes is, you have to look at everything where you're retiring, safety, now climate change, LGBTQ community, whether it's safe or not, everything. There's it limits the bucket list, put it that way. So,
Absolutely.
all right. Well, Terry, thank you so much for coming to the podcast. And we enjoyed and got educated. I'd like to see some pictures of you dressed up in your historical garb. So that will be fun.
Yeah.
And thank you for everything. And I appreciate it very much.
Well, if you get to Lewes, stop by the tavern and I'll set you up with a grog.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Where Do Gays Retire podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast and consider making a donation by clicking the coffee cup on any page at www.wheredogaysretire.com. Each cup of coffee that you buy costs $5 and goes towards helping us continue the podcast. Thank you for your continued support.